Princess Liara hovered near the edge of the palace balcony, her tiny wings shimmering in the light of the twin suns. She was no taller than a human child, but her presence carried a grace that made her feel larger than her size. The floating towers of the shimmering void city sparkled below her, colors shifting with the reflection of the stars and the twin suns. She looked out over her kingdom, a place that should have felt comforting, yet today it only made her feel smaller. All her life, Liara had been taught that as a princess, she would be desired, admired, and loved by the strongest and most respected alien males in the galaxy. Yet, every suitor who came to court her had found reasons to reject her. One said her delicate wings were too fragile. Another said her small size made her seem powerless. Yet another insisted that her gentle, empathetic mind could never understand the hard decisions of a ruler. Liara let out a soft sigh. She knew the truth, though no one else would admit it. The galaxy had a prejudice against anyone different from the norm. She was tiny, delicate, and sensitive. She could hear the thoughts and emotions of others, a gift that should have made her more powerful in any court. Instead, it seemed to alien suitors that it made her too different to love. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of her attendant, a tall, slender alien named Vorin. "Your Highness, another delegation from the Galactic Council has arrived. They bring news of a human envoy visiting your planet." Liara tilted her head. Humans. She had read about them in the reports. They were rare travelers to her corner of the galaxy, often considered primitive and small-minded by alien standards. Yet their curiosity, adaptability, and unusual courage often surprised many worlds. "I want to meet him," Liara said quietly. "I want to see if he is like the others." Vorin raised an eyebrow. "Most humans are ordinary. You should not expect much." Liara smiled faintly. She was used to being underestimated. That was why she felt she might finally meet someone who saw more than her size or her wings. The human arrived 2 days later, aboard a sleek silver craft that hummed gently as it descended into the palace courtyard. He stepped out, tall and confident, with dark hair and warm eyes. Liara watched him from her balcony, hidden behind the shimmering curtains of her chamber. He moved through the alien guards and attendants with ease, greeting them politely, observing everything with a quiet, steady gaze. Unlike the alien suitors, who all acted either too proud or too dismissive, this human treated everyone as if they mattered. Liara felt her curiosity stir. Could a human really see her for who she was instead of what she looked like? That evening, during the welcoming ceremony, Liara finally saw her chance. She floated down from the balcony on her soft, glowing wings, moving among the aliens without drawing too much attention. The human was speaking with the council elders when their eyes met. He paused, smiled politely, and inclined his head in greeting. "You must be Princess Liara," he said, his voice calm but warm. "I've heard much about you." Liara blinked. His tone carried no mockery, no hesitation, only curiosity. She stepped closer, her wings brushing lightly against the glowing floor. "I have heard of humans," she said, her voice soft, "but I never expected to meet one." He chuckled lightly. "And I never expected to meet a princess who could hear the feelings of others without them speaking. That is remarkable." Liara felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Someone saw her not as fragile or small, but as unique. The human's words made her feel larger than her body ever could. As the ceremony continued, the alien nobles whispered among themselves. "Why is he talking to her?" one asked. "She is tiny, insignificant." "She is a princess," another replied. "But he is human. Perhaps he is blind to her weaknesses." Liara ignored the whispers. For the first time, she felt no shame about her size, no bitterness at being rejected. The human treated her as a person, not a novelty. Over the next few days, she observed him closely. He did not rush through the palace, nor did he look down on anyone. He asked questions about the gardens, the floating fountains, the glowing flora. He laughed at the strange shapes of the alien animals and marveled at the light dances of the twin suns. And he always made time to speak to her, asking gentle questions about her powers, her dreams, and the life she wished to have. Other alien suitors watched with disbelief. No human had ever dared to approach a princess without deference or fear. The audacity shocked them. Some laughed quietly, others shook their heads in disapproval, but Liara paid them no mind. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting soft violet and gold hues over the city, the human found her alone in the palace garden. She was perched on a floating flower, her wings folded, watching the petals drift in the gentle air currents. "Princess Liara," he said, approaching slowly, "may I join you?" Liara nodded, her heart fluttering. "Of course." He settled beside her, careful not to touch her wings. "Do you like this place?" he asked. "It is beautiful," she admitted, "but sometimes it feels like a cage. Everyone expects me to be perfect, to act a certain way, to please the galaxy, but no one wants to understand me." The human nodded. "I think I understand," he said simply. "I've traveled many worlds, and I've learned that people, no matter how different they seem, often just want someone to see them, really see them. You are not fragile, Princess Liara. You are extraordinary." Liara felt a warmth spread through her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She had been rejected so many times that she had begun to believe she was unworthy, but his words melted that doubt. For hours they walked through the garden, speaking quietly about the stars, the strange creatures of her world, and the wonders of the galaxy beyond. She laughed freely for the first time in months, discovering that humans had a gentle humor, a patience she had never known in the alien courts. The alien nobles, of course, noticed. They whispered in the shadows. "A human speaking to our princess as if he were her equal, preposterous." But Liara ignored them. In this human, she had found a kindness that no alien could match. She had found someone who saw value in her, not despite her size or powers, but because of them. A week later, the Royal Council gathered in the Grand Hall to discuss the upcoming interstellar gala, where all eligible suitors would compete for the honor of the princess's hand. Traditionally, alien males flaunted strength, wealth, or strategic brilliance to prove themselves worthy. Liara listened silently as the council spoke, feeling the familiar pang of exclusion. Suddenly, the human raised his hand. "Princess Liara should not be judged by alien rules," he said, his voice steady. "The strongest, the largest, or the wealthiest does not make the best partner. The one who listens, who cares, and who respects her individuality is the one worthy of her trust." The room went silent. Alien nobles exchanged angry glances. A human had dared challenge centuries of tradition. Liara's heart raced. For the first time, she realized that perhaps she did not need the approval of the entire galaxy. Perhaps she only needed someone who understood her, someone who valued her for who she was. That night, Liara returned to her chamber, her tiny hands clutching the glowing railing of her balcony. She looked up at the stars, feeling hope for the first time in a long while. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was not as lonely as it seemed. From the shadows of the garden below, the human looked up at her, smiling softly. "Good night, Princess Liara," he whispered. "Good night, Ethan," she replied, her voice trembling with quiet joy. "Thank you for seeing me." As she drifted to sleep, her wings glimmering faintly in the starlight, she dreamed of a future where she could soar freely, not bound by rejection, not limited by expectations, but supported by someone who truly believed in her. In that vast galaxy, amidst the towering alien civilizations and endless stars, Liara felt a small spark of change. The tiny princess who had been rejected by All Might had finally found someone who could lift her higher than she had ever flown before. And somewhere in the infinite night, she knew that her story, the story of a small princess and a human who dared to see her, was only just beginning. The next morning, Princess Liara woke with sunlight streaming through the transparent walls of her chamber. The soft colors of the twin suns painted the room in gentle golds and purples, reflecting off her wings, making them glow faintly. Today was different. She could feel it. The human, Ethan, would be joining the palace for the day, and she could not stop thinking about the way he had spoken to her the night before. He had seen her, truly seen her, in a way no alien ever had. She floated down to the garden, her tiny feet brushing the petals of the floating flowers. The garden was alive with soft noises. Alien birds with glowing feathers sang quietly, water shifted in slow arcs from the hovering fountains, and the air carried a faint fragrance she loved, but no one else seemed to notice. And there, near the central fountain, was Ethan, kneeling slightly to observe a small, floating creature that hovered around the water. "Good morning, Princess Liara," he said, standing as she approached. His smile was warm and his eyes reflected curiosity and care. "Good morning, Ethan," she replied, feeling her heart lift. "I did not expect you to notice the tiny creatures here. Most visitors only see the grand towers and the lights." He chuckled softly. "And miss these little wonders? Never. Sometimes the smallest things tell the most about a world." Liara's wings twitched with delight. "I like that you notice them. Most people, most aliens, do not." They walked together slowly, drifting between glowing flowers and hovering benches. Ethan asked her questions. Not about her title, not about her powers, but about her world, her favorite things, and even the dreams she sometimes whispered to herself when no one was around. She had never shared these things with anyone before, not even her attendants, who treated her more like a sacred object than a person. "You must have so much to see and learn," Ethan said as they stopped beside a fountain where the water twisted in arcs of shimmering colors. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to travel beyond this city, beyond your world?" Liara's wings fluttered in thought. "I do. I sometimes imagine the stars and other worlds, but it feels impossible. Aliens do not accept those who do not fit the mold. I am tiny. I am delicate. They do not see the possibilities in that." Ethan shook his head gently. "Possibilities do not depend on size or strength. They depend on curiosity, courage, and heart. And you, Princess Liara, have all three." Her chest felt warm at his words. No one had ever said that to her. Not her family, not the nobles, not the suitors who had rejected her. For the first time, she felt like she mattered for more than appearances. Later that day, a group of alien nobles arrived in the garden. They had heard of Ethan's arrival and seemed determined to remind Liara who ruled this world and who decided her future. They were large, imposing creatures with sharp features, their voices booming and heavy. "Princess," one of them said, his tone almost mocking, "why do you spend your time with this human? He is nothing compared to what the galaxy expects of you." Liara's wings trembled slightly, but she held her ground. "He is not nothing," she replied firmly. "He sees me. That is worth more than size or strength or titles." The nobles laughed, a deep, echoing sound that made the floating flowers sway. "Do you not know your place? The galaxy will not accept this. You are a princess and he is human. He cannot understand our ways, our rules." Ethan stepped forward, calm but firm. "With respect, Princess Liara should be allowed to choose who she spends her time with. Understanding does not come from following rules blindly. It comes from paying attention, listening, and caring. That is what I try to do." The nobles blinked, taken aback. Their own rules, their centuries of traditions, did not include being challenged by a human or by a princess who refused to obey blindly. Liara felt a spark of pride. She had been small, quiet, and overlooked for so long. Yet now she was speaking her mind, supported by someone who respected her. It felt exhilarating. Throughout the day, Ethan showed Liara how humans sometimes solved problems differently. They observed the floating fountains together, and he suggested simple adjustments to the water flows that made the patterns more beautiful and balanced. He noticed subtle changes in the glowing flora that could help the plants thrive. The other aliens scoffed quietly, whispering that it was foolish to listen to a human. But Liara could see the effects, small, careful improvements that made the garden even more alive. Humans see patterns differently, Ethan explained, smiling at her. Sometimes it helps to step back and notice things others overlook. It is not magic, just observation and care. Liara nodded, fascinated. I have powers that let me feel the world, but sometimes it is too much. Your way, it feels simple and strong. By mid-afternoon, they arrived at a balcony overlooking the city. Below, the towers floated, lights shifting as the twin suns began their descent. Alien citizens moved about in quiet routines, unaware of the small rebellion happening in the royal garden. Liara and Ethan watched the colors shift over the city. "Do you ever feel trapped by what others expect?" she asked quietly. "All the time," he admitted. "But I try to remember that expectations are not limits unless I let them be. The galaxy is vast. There is always a way to find freedom if you are willing to see it." Liara felt a deep connection to him, stronger than any she had ever felt with alien suitors. They had only met recently, but already she felt understood in a way that went beyond words. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows, and the first stars appeared. Ethan looked at her seriously. "Princess Liara, I know the nobles may not understand us. They may laugh or dismiss you, but I want you to remember, your worth is not measured by their rules. It is measured by your heart, your mind, and the choices you make." Liara's wings shivered with emotion. She had always feared being judged, always feared rejection. And yet, standing beside him, she felt courage she had never known. The evening brought a gala, a formal gathering of alien nobles and dignitaries. Liara floated in her gown of shimmering light, her wings folded carefully. She noticed the whispers immediately. The nobles had not forgotten the human's presence, and they were eager to remind her that she was expected to behave according to tradition. Ethan stayed by her side quietly, polite but observant, his human confidence never wavering. As Liara moved through the crowd, he whispered observations, small reminders that she could do things differently. "See that pattern of lights over there? You can float under it to make them notice the glow of your wings," he suggested. "They may try to ignore you, but you can show them beauty they cannot deny." Liara followed his advice, and immediately the room seemed to shift. Some nobles muttered in surprise, others looked at her with cautious curiosity. She realized that even small changes, guided by care and thoughtfulness, could have a big effect. During the gala, an alien suitor approached her. He was large and imposing, expecting to intimidate her. "Princess Liara," he said, his voice low and commanding, "why do you waste your time with that human? You are a princess of the shimmering void. You deserve someone powerful, someone strong, someone who matches our world." Liara stood tall, her wings glowing faintly in the soft light. "I do not need someone who matches the world. I need someone who sees me, who respects me, and who values me for who I am. Strength is not only in size or power, it is in understanding, in courage, and in kindness." The suitor's expression faltered. No one had ever spoken to him with such confidence. Ethan stepped forward silently, not to fight, but simply to stand with her. His presence alone made her feel unshakable. For the first time, Liara realized she could stand against centuries of expectation and prejudice, not with violence, but with truth, dignity, and the quiet support of someone who cared for her. After the gala ended, the palace was quiet. Liara returned to the garden, her wings folded gently as she settled on a floating flower. Ethan joined her, and they watched the stars twinkle over the city. "Do you think they will ever understand?" Liara asked softly. "Perhaps not," Ethan admitted, "but it does not matter. Understanding is nice, but it is not required. What matters is that you know your worth and you live by it." Liara smiled. "I think I am beginning to understand, and I am grateful for your help, for your care, for seeing me." Ethan smiled back. "And I am grateful that you trust me. You are not just a princess, Liara. You are someone extraordinary, and extraordinary people should never be hidden. As the night deepened, they remained in the garden, talking quietly about dreams, about worlds beyond the twin suns, about what it meant to be different and yet strong. Liara's heart felt lighter than it ever had. For the first time, she did not feel small. She felt powerful, seen, and valued. In that quiet, glowing garden, the tiny princess and the human man shared a moment of connection that neither of them would ever forget. It was a bond of respect, trust, and understanding, a small beginning that could change the course of her life, her world, and perhaps even the galaxy. Liara knew one thing for certain: the journey ahead would not be easy. The alien nobles and suitors would not yield easily. But with someone who saw her for who she truly was, she felt ready to face whatever came next. And for the first time, she looked forward to the future with hope, courage, and the quiet certainty that she was no longer alone. The twin suns rose slowly over the shimmering void, painting the floating towers in shades of gold and pink. Princess Liara stood on her balcony, her wings stretching as she looked down at the city below. Today was no ordinary day. The Galactic Council had announced a tournament not for war, but for skill, strategy, and leadership. All eligible suitors of the princess would compete to show who was worthy of her hand. Liara had participated in similar events before, but never with any hope of winning. The other aliens were stronger, faster, and larger. She was tiny and delicate, and her gifts were rarely understood. Yet this time, something was different. With Ethan at her side, she felt a confidence she had never known before. Ethan arrived at the palace courtyard shortly after dawn. He was carrying a small satchel filled with sketches and notes about the tournament arena. "Good morning, Princess," he said, his eyes bright with curiosity. "I thought we could look at the layout together. There may be ways to approach it that the other competitors will not expect." Liara smiled. "I like that idea. They always rely on strength. Perhaps we can try something different." The arena was a floating platform far above the city, surrounded by anti-gravity rings and glowing energy barriers. The competitors included the largest and most impressive alien males from across the galaxy. Their muscles bulged, their armor gleamed, and their confidence was nearly unbearable. They had already begun showing off, demonstrating agility, strength, and mastery over their own unique powers. Liara felt a twinge of doubt. Could she really compete? Her wings fluttered nervously as she thought of the whispers of rejection from so many years. But then she glanced at Ethan. He smiled reassuringly. "Remember, Princess, strategy and understanding can be stronger than brute force. You are not here to match them in size. You are here to be yourself." His words grounded her. For the first time, she realized that her unique abilities, her empathy, her intelligence, her careful observation were not weaknesses. They were her strengths. The first round of the tournament involved navigating a complex series of floating platforms while completing tasks that tested memory, coordination, and logic. The alien competitors rushed forward, confident in their physical prowess. Many stumbled, overestimating their strength and underestimating the precision required. Liara stepped forward, her wings carrying her lightly over the gaps between platforms. She observed each challenge carefully, noting the flow of the energy fields and the timing of the moving obstacles. With Ethan's guidance, she adjusted her path, moving steadily and deliberately. Other competitors fell behind, frustrated by missteps or impatience. By the end of the first round, Liara had reached the center platform with ease. Her small size allowed her to slip through narrow spaces and make moves the larger competitors could not. For the first time, the nobles watching in the stands whispered in surprise. How is she ahead? The second round was more complex, requiring competitors to solve a series of puzzles while navigating the floating arena. Some involved manipulating light beams to activate hidden panels. Others required understanding alien symbols that shifted constantly. The aliens attempted to use brute force or speed, But the puzzles required observation, patience, and insight, qualities many of them lacked. Ethan leaned close to Liara as they approached the first puzzle. "Look at the pattern of the lights," he whispered. "They repeat in a rhythm. You can use that to predict the next moves." Liara concentrated, allowing her empathy to sense the subtle shifts in the energy fields. She aligned the beams, activated the panels, and moved through the puzzle with grace. Other competitors groaned in frustration, realizing too late that speed and strength alone were useless here. By the end of the second round, Liara had completed the puzzles faster than most of the aliens. She was not the fastest physically, but her intelligence and patience allowed her to excel. The crowd began to murmur in astonishment. A human was observing at her side, guiding her subtly, and a tiny princess was outperforming the galaxy's strongest and most respected males. The final round involved a test of strategy and teamwork. Competitors were required to navigate a series of tasks in pairs, helping a partner complete challenges while avoiding obstacles. The alien nobles assumed that only two aliens could pair successfully. Liara surprised them by asking Ethan to participate, a human, small and unarmored but clever and resourceful. Many of the aliens scoffed. A human, with the princess, ridiculous. But Liara and Ethan approached the challenges differently. When a large platform began tilting dangerously, Liara used her light weight to stabilize it while Ethan guided her movements. When a series of energy barriers required precise timing, he calculated the intervals while she synchronized with his instructions. Together, they moved fluidly, anticipating each other's actions, turning what seemed like an impossible course into a series of manageable steps. The alien competitors struggled. They tried to rely on raw power, pushing against obstacles, attempting to force solutions that required finesse. One by one, they fell behind. Some became frustrated and aggressive, making mistakes that cost them valuable time. Liara, however, moved with quiet confidence, her small wings and careful mind allowing her to adapt instantly. As they approached the final task, the largest alien suitor, a towering figure with armor of deep metallic green, tried to intimidate her. He roared, expecting her to panic, expecting Ethan to fail. But Liara did not flinch. She took a deep breath, aligning herself with Ethan's instructions, and moved past the obstacle with precision and calm. The final challenge was a puzzle that required a combination of observation, empathy, and strategy. Liara paused, sensing the energy around her, noticing patterns that the others overlooked. Ethan leaned close, whispering suggestions, but allowing her to take the lead. Together, they completed the task flawlessly. The arena fell silent for a moment. The alien nobles and spectators had never witnessed such a display. A tiny princess, aided by a human, had outperformed the galaxy's strongest and most prestigious males. The crowd erupted in astonished applause. Liara felt a rush of exhilaration. She had always believed herself small and insignificant, rejected by suitors and overlooked by society. Yet now, she had proven that size and tradition did not define worth. Her courage, intelligence, and empathy had carried her to victory, and the human beside her, calm, clever, respectful, had shown her that partnership could amplify her strengths rather than diminish them. As they returned to the palace, whispers followed them through the halls. Some nobles were still skeptical, but others were beginning to reconsider their assumptions about humans and the tiny princess. That evening, in the quiet of the palace garden, Liara floated on a glowing flower, her wings gently shimmering. Ethan joined her, carrying a small satchel with a few sketches he had made during the tournament. "You were amazing today," he said simply. "You moved with confidence, intelligence, and grace. The galaxy may not realize it yet, but you have changed something today." Liara smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. "I was afraid at first. I thought my size, my powers, and my differences made me weak. But today I saw that they are my strengths. Ethan nodded. Humans often have the same lesson. Strength is not always in muscle or size. It is in thought, in courage, and in heart. And you, Princess Liara, have all three. For the first time, she realized the depth of their connection. It was more than admiration. It was understanding, trust, and mutual respect. She had spent years feeling invisible, rejected, and overlooked. Now she was seen, truly seen, by someone who did not judge her, who valued her for her mind, her heart, and her spirit. The next few days brought celebrations for her victory. The nobles could not ignore her accomplishments. Some continued to grumble, but many quietly acknowledged that she had proven herself in ways they had never expected. They began to see that humans, though small and unassuming, could be powerful allies, capable of insight and courage beyond the usual measures of strength. Liara felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not only succeeded in the tournament, but she had also demonstrated that the galaxy's standards could be expanded. Perhaps one day, more people, human or alien, would be valued for their hearts and minds rather than size or power alone. That night, she and Ethan walked along the palace balcony, the stars shimmering above them. Liara felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. The tiny princess who had been rejected by so many now stood proudly, her wings glowing softly, her heart full of confidence and hope. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think I would always be alone, that no one could ever understand me." Ethan smiled, his hand brushing gently against hers. "You are not alone, Liara, not now, not ever. You have shown the galaxy who you are, and you have found someone who values you completely." Liara laughed lightly, the sound carrying softly over the garden. "It feels wonderful. To be seen, to be appreciated, to be free." Ethan looked at her, admiration shining in his eyes. "And this is only the beginning. The galaxy may still doubt us, but together we can face anything." Liara felt her wings flutter with excitement. The future was no longer a cage. It was an open sky, full of possibilities. And with Ethan beside her, she knew she could soar higher than she had ever dreamed. In the quiet night, amidst the floating lights and the soft glow of the twin suns, remnants, Liara and Ethan shared a moment of peace and understanding. The tiny princess had proven herself to the galaxy, and the human had shown her that partnership and respect could overcome any prejudice. As they looked out over the shimmering void, Liara felt a deep certainty. No matter the challenges ahead, she was ready. She was seen. She was valued. She was free. And together with Ethan, the small princess and the human man could face the galaxy with courage, heart, and brilliance. The days after the tournament felt different across the shimmering void. The floating towers still shimmered, the twin suns still rose and set in soft gold and violet light, but the whispers in the halls had changed. They were no longer only about Princess Liara's size or her delicate wings. Now they spoke about her victory, about the puzzles she solved, about the way she moved through the arena with calm intelligence, and about the human who stood beside her. Liara stood once again on her balcony, looking down at the city. The air felt lighter. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like she was looking at a world that judged her. She felt like she was looking at a world she had helped reshape. Inside the palace, the Galactic Council had called for a final gathering. The tournament had been completed, but tradition demanded one last decision. The council would formally announce who was most worthy of the princess's hand. It was meant to be a simple confirmation. Yet nothing about this moment felt simple. Ethan stood in the courtyard below, speaking politely with a group of diplomats from distant star systems. He looked calm, but Liara could sense his thoughts. Not fear, not pride, just steady determination. He was not here to win a prize. He was here because he cared. When the great hall doors opened, nobles and citizens floated or walked inside. The ceiling shimmered like a night sky, tiny lights forming constellations that shifted slowly above them. Liara entered last, her wings glowing softly, her gown flowing like liquid starlight behind her. A silence fell across the hall. The head of the Galactic Council, an ancient alien with silver markings across his skin, stepped forward. "Princess Liara of the Shimmering Void," he began, his voice echoing gently, "you have completed the trials. You have demonstrated intelligence, balance, and leadership. The Council must now confirm your future." A tall alien suitor stepped forward. He had lost in the tournament, but tradition still allowed him to speak. "The galaxy respects strength," he said loudly. "Tradition protects us. A human cannot represent our values. He does not understand our history, our power." Murmurs of agreement rippled through part of the hall. Liara felt the familiar weight of expectation pressing against her chest. For years she had bent beneath it. Today, she did not. She floated forward until she stood beside Ethan. "I respect our traditions," she said clearly. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the room. "But tradition should guide us, not trap us. The trials were not about size. They were not about fear. They were about leadership, partnership, and wisdom." She turned slightly toward Ethan. "In every challenge, he did not try to overshadow me. He did not try to control me. He supported me. He trusted me. He listened. That is strength." The tall suitor crossed his arms. "Humans are young in the galaxy. They are unpredictable." Ethan finally stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not look angry. "Humans are young," he agreed calmly. "And because of that, we learned to adapt. We survived not by being the strongest in the universe, but by working together, by valuing minds and hearts as much as muscle. I do not wish to replace your traditions. I wish to stand beside Princess Liara as her equal." The hall grew quiet again. Liara looked toward the council. "You once told me I must choose someone who strengthens our world. I believe strength is not about who dominates. It is about who uplifts." The ancient council leader studied her carefully. For the first time, his expression softened. "You have changed," he said slowly. Liara smiled gently. "No, I have simply stopped hiding." A long pause filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. One of the elder nobles who had once mocked her stepped forward. "I watched the tournament closely," he admitted. "The humans' methods were unusual, but effective, and the princess showed judgment and grace beyond her years." Another noble nodded. "The galaxy is evolving. Perhaps we must as well." The tall suitor looked around, realizing the mood had shifted. He lowered his gaze slightly, no longer speaking. The council leader lifted his staff, its crystal tip glowing softly. "Then let it be recorded," he announced. "Princess Liara has proven her worth not by force but by wisdom. If she chooses the human envoy, Ethan of Earth, as her partner, the council will recognize it." All eyes turned to Liara. Her wings fluttered gently. She did not feel small. She did not feel fragile. She felt powerful in a quiet, steady way. She turned to Ethan. "Ethan," she said softly but clearly enough for the hall to hear, "when you first arrived, you did not see a tiny princess to be pitied. You saw a person. You gave me courage when I doubted myself. You showed me that partnership means standing beside each other, not in front or behind." Ethan looked at her with warmth in his eyes. "Liara, you never needed me to be strong. You already were. I only reminded you." A faint wave of emotion moved through the hall. Even the nobles who had once laughed could not deny the sincerity in his voice. Liara extended her small hand. "I choose you," she said. Ethan gently took her hand, careful and respectful. A bright pulse of light spread through the chamber as the council's crystal staff reacted, sealing the decision in ancient energy. It was not a display of dominance. It was a recognition of unity. The hall erupted in applause, not forced applause, not polite applause. Genuine acknowledgement. The tiny princess who had once been rejected by every alien male in the galaxy had chosen a human, and the galaxy had accepted it. That evening, the palace gardens glowed brighter than ever. Citizens gathered below floating lanterns that drifted like gentle stars. Music played softly, blending alien instruments with a simple human melody Ethan had shared from Earth. Liara floated beside him near the central fountain. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. "Of what?" Ethan replied. "Of the future, of leading beside someone so different," he smiled. "Difference is not something to fear, it is something to learn from. Humans have always learned from those who are different." Liara looked at the sky. The twin suns were setting, painting the horizon in deep orange and violet. For the first time in her life, she did not feel the weight of expectations crushing her. She felt possibility. Across the garden, several young alien children watched her with wide eyes. "She is small," one whispered. "Yes," another replied, "but she won." Liara heard them and smiled. That simple conversation meant more to her than any title. Later that night, she and Ethan stood on the highest balcony of the palace. The entire city shimmered below them. Starships moved quietly between towers, their lights blinking like distant fireflies. "You have changed this world," Ethan said softly. "We changed it," she corrected gently. He nodded. Far beyond the city, a transmission was sent across the galaxy. It carried a simple message. The shimmering void welcomes Earth as an honored ally. In distant systems, aliens who had once dismissed humans paused and reconsidered. Not because of war, not because of threats, but because of a story. A story about a tiny princess and a human who saw her worth. In the weeks that followed, Liara and Ethan worked together to build stronger connections between worlds. Ethan introduced practical human innovations, simple engineering adjustments, new agricultural techniques, creative education ideas. Liara used her empathy and insight to guide fair decisions and peaceful diplomacy. Their partnership became an example, not perfect, not without challenges, but balanced. And slowly the phrase once whispered with doubt, "He is only human," began to change. Now it was spoken with respect. One quiet evening, Liara sat beside Ethan in the garden where they had first spoken openly. The floating flowers drifted around them, glowing softly. "Do you ever think about how strange this all is?" she asked with a small laugh. "A little," Ethan admitted. "Back on Earth, no one would believe this story," she smiled. "I am glad you came. I am glad you invited me to stay." She rested her small hand in his again, her wings glowing faintly in the night. Above them, the stars stretched endlessly. The galaxy had once measured worth in size and dominance. But now, in one shining corner of space, it measured something different. Courage to stand up for oneself, wisdom to see beyond tradition, strength to choose partnership over pride, and the understanding that sometimes the smallest voice can create the greatest change. Princess Liara, once rejected and overlooked, no longer felt tiny Q, she felt limitless. And beside her stood a human, not the strongest creature in the galaxy, not the most feared, but one of the most adaptable, compassionate, and determined. Together, they did not rule through power. They led through example, and in the vast silence of space, that example echoed farther than anyone had expected.